Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is Soupbow, and we're going to take a look at my new level behind the scenes, which is Remaining Colors of the Soupbow. And it's a play that I guess not a lot of people noticed that this was a play on Rainbow, Soupbow, and it fit really well with the theme because of Bearware, because Bearware made the first Paintbow. And actually, Steva was the one that suggested this title, which is really interesting. And I was like, oh my... I mean, when he first told it to me, I was kind of blown away because it was so good. Like, holy crap. But anyways, this is the... We are not renaming this. Cancel. This is the explanation behind the scenes. And we're going to take a look at this. Alright, so for the first room here... So what happens is that a piranha will come out of here, but why does it stop coming out? That's because of this on-off block right here. And there's just a switch timer up here that times it so that it won't release any more piranhas after the first one. Just like that. And then that spring actually pushes it off. And what happens is that the piranha actually despawns. And by despawning off screen, it's able to come out of the pipe again. But what's interesting about this is that if you kill the piranha and not despawn it, like say if a block came down instead of the spring and to kill the piranha, it doesn't come out of the pipe. So it actually has to go off screen to despawn, and that's what I'm doing with that. That's the whole purpose of this spring here. So this next troll, so at this point the switch state will be off, and then they have to hit this to turn it back on. So basically, that releases this, that turns back on this switch block, and then the piranha is able to come out after that, after you get baited by this pipe over here that's fake. And then it's just this spring that comes down on top of this. And what's really cool, that I'm really proud of about this, is that the spring actually works not only as a door platform, but as a means of bouncing the piranha back in this direction where the player is. So I thought that was really cool, and I'm pretty happy with that setup. This Kaizo block is also intentional. I will show you why. If you were to actually, let me do it this way. So don't scroll, please. So let that happen first. This has happened way too much. Just me getting trolled by this fish over and over. Okay, so the Kaizo block. That's what happens when you hit the Kaizo and you actually don't go in the door fast enough. The piranha just sits on top of the door perfectly. So this Kaizo is also like you're trying to jump onto the spring, but you hit the Kaizo instead and you go flying over here. And then while you're over here contemplating what just happened, the piranha will come and sit on the door. So that's all intentional. There's a lot of layers and interesting stuff about this room that makes it work really well, and I'm pretty happy with it. Alright, so then you go into the hub room. The only thing to note about the hub room is that when you come out of this door, you're actually on the on state. But if you notice in the level, every single room's first troll is different the first time you enter it. Why is that? That's because of the switch state. So I need to turn the switch state back off once they come out of the door and hit the checkpoint for the first time, so that in whichever door they go in, they'll get trolled by the changing troll, if that makes sense. And then of course when you spawn from the checkpoint or this pipe, then the switch state will be on. Yeah. Alright, so this first room is pretty chaotic. I will try to do my best to explain it, but yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of crap going on off screen here. This part over here is a bit easier to explain. I will show that later, but for now I'm just going to start with this. So, what happens after you come out of the door, right? Let me grab the door, put it here so I can access it easier. And my stupid controller. Alright. So, what happens when you enter the door? That's what happens. So, that's why you end up over here so fast after you go off screen, is this blue skull platform. And it just carries you over here. So I'm going to hold up. And that's how it happens so fast. So you'll notice that this clown car doesn't die on the first time you come through, which is the blue state. That's because of this switch track. So this block will come to reveal the hint after you've already entered the room for a second time. So that's the whole point here. Now, what happens on the blue state, only this vine comes up. That's because this spike ball is being despawned by this block. So the first time you come into the room, this guy will not grow. Only this vine block will grow. That's because there's no switch block behind this spike ball. And those spike balls, as you can see, are the ones to hit the question blocks. And I can't really put anything right here because the vine block comes up too fast. So I can't like put the spike ball right here. I have to actually allow some time to pass before the vine block activates. So this note block is just here to bounce the spike ball up into this. There's no other reason for this note block. It's just completely pointless otherwise. So I will explain why I need the rest of this stuff now. And it's going to be a little tough to explain that, but... So, the first thing you'll notice is that this is over here at the beginning of the room. But, when I could just do this to launch the cannon up, right? So why aren't I doing that? That is because of the switch state troll. The very first time you enter the room, it's on blue state. And what does that mean? That means this thwomp is going to immediately activate this seesaw because there's nothing behind it to prevent it from activating it on the blue state. And that's simply because there needs to be nothing behind it because otherwise it would ruin the setup, right? You need this thwomp to spawn on the red state. And then of course the troll that's activating this thwomp in the first place uses a switch, so I can't put anything behind here to spawn it, block these guys. So this guy is basically so on the blue state, this guy will immediately hit the seesaw. What does that mean? That means this would go up immediately, but I don't want that to happen. So I put it against the wall over here and actually make this flame bar, whatever, to actually bring the cannon over here. As you can see, it just kind of brings it over slowly like that. Now, why do I need it to stick to the wall? That's another good question. The reason it has to stick to the wall is because if it didn't, it actually does not launch as high as if it did if it stuck to the wall. That's why it has to stick to the wall, because it has to go high enough to get up to this door, which it wouldn't otherwise. So that's the only reason it's sticking to the wall, and that's important. The other thing that's happening here is that you'll notice the vine doesn't actually grow all the way up. It only hits right about here and then stops growing. So why is that happening? That's because if the vine were to grow all the way up, you actually cannot enter this door. So if the vine were to overgrow on this door, you can't enter it, and that makes this troll completely useless. So I have to actually break the vine block before it gets to the door. So how do I do that? So the vine block is way over here, and it's out of any range of bombs. So I have to actually physically get a bomb in here to break it up. So what I'm doing here is, this is a screen lock, as you can see, right here. This is a screen lock, and I'm blowing it up immediately so that the screen will still stay in place, but it will start on this screen, if that makes sense. For those of you who know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. That's not the important thing. So the next part is that this bomb will actually walk into this little alcove, I guess you want to call it. There's a one-way here to actually keep the bomb here, And then this block will actually come along and kill the bomb that's right here. And that's what kills the vine block to prevent it from going up any further. And I'm going to show it right now. Yeah, the bomb just kind of walks in there. And now the vine is broken before the door. That's how I get that to work. So now that the vine is broken, I don't actually need this bomb anymore. So I can actually just... So this bomb up here also serves to kill the bomb that's right here. So after the vine breaks. And the reason I have another bomb here is because if they were to go super fast in this section, you know, if they were like to fall down here, go over here, and then immediately over here, the vine would still be growing, like right here. But I still want this thing to trigger. So what happens is that this bomb will just shoot through the roof here and basically destroy the block wherever the vine is at that point. So that's why there is another bomb here, to essentially get the cannon through the vine block right away. And of course you have the switch activator up here, which is just a spiny on top of the ceiling. And of course once you get to a certain height, which happens to be right about here, the spiny will drop and hit the switch. The reason I have this here is because the spiny will be facing right when you come out of this door, because it always faces whichever direction you are coming out of a door. So it'll be facing right, which means it'll get into position faster without this thing here. So I have this here to actually prevent it from moving initially, and then once it leaves, it can just kind of go into position slower. So that's why this is here. It's just a timing thing. Very kind of similar to this down here. So one last thing I have to mention is that I am killing the player on the blue state, which is the state you come out of the first time. And that's just because of this fish switch track right here. I'm just basically, what's happening is that the player isn't pressing any buttons the first time because they don't know what to do. So this will simply bring them over to this spot and then drop them right here. And then of course the fish comes and then hits them right here, just in time for them to see the vine and, oh crap, I should have held up, and then they hold up on the next turn, but there's another vine going up here and blah blah blah. So all of that stuff is what's happening here. So I think that's pretty much it. This is just, this works really fast. This setup works super fast with this slope here. So yeah, it's a super fast no block activator. Yeah, I think that's about it for this part. So the next part up here is a mole on a note block. There's actually two moles. There's like super low entity trolls here that I just added in. They're kind of fillery, but you know, it's just kind of to fill the room up a little bit better. So basically, you know how this works. I'm not really going to explain that one. For this one, you actually get baited into standing and contemplating like decisions right underneath this sword. So by staying under here, this bomb, you'll actually hit the bomb from underneath. And then the bomb will actually go right through the wall and into this giant hint box. So it's like you need the sword, but then, oh, suddenly you need the bomb. So yeah, that was kind of failed, I want to say. It wasn't super good, but you know, like I said, it's mostly a filler troll. So down here is the second interesting part of this room. By the way, this room is so full of entities that it took up all of my sprites, basically. It's like, yeah, see, so I used all of my sprites in this level, and it's like, when I counted, I think it was 34 entities, which is absolutely insane for a single room, when you think about it. So yeah, it's crazy what this room is. So down here, the first thing that happens is that this boot actually falls through the muncher. And you may be wondering why that happens, and that's simply because of hitboxes. Imagine that, right? hitboxes in Super Mario Maker 2 suck. So yeah, what happens is that the Boot Goomba is actually considered an enemy hitbox, but power-up hitboxes are smaller than enemy hitboxes. So once the Goomba in the boot dies, the boot becomes a power-up, which means the hitbox is only about half of the enemy's hitbox. So since you're killing the Goomba, the boot will just go right through the muncher because it's only like sitting right here. And so I'm basically pushing the muncher with this flamethrower here, or burner. And then you can see that there's a bomb down here that explodes the block that the muncher was resting on initially. So that's how that setup works. You can see how the muncher is just like halfway, like right here. And that's enough for this boot to just fall right through it, which is not what people would expect, even though this troll kind of wasn't super successful because people did expect something weird to happen, and they just kind of YOLO'd it to the left anyways. So it wasn't like, it got people about 50% of the time, or something like that, I don't know. Anyways, so the next thing that happens is that the boot will fly upwards, right? And then you'll realize, oh shoot, there's actually ground here, so I need to actually jump back to get the boot. So why is the boot coming up? That's because of the seesaw. And for whatever reason, whenever you put just a little bit of weight on, and then you have this setup, I'm going to use a fire flower here to simulate the boot falling on the seesaw. So that's what happens. You can see, you can watch the thwomp thing, and then it moves upward to the note block, and then immediately ground pounds the seesaw, because, you know, note blocks activate thwomps. So that's how this is working. It's just a weight detector thing. And then, of course, the seesaw will launch the boot back up. So after that happens, what happens here is the bomb will go off immediately when any weight is present on the seesaw. You notice how the bomb just immediately explodes because of that fire flower right now. So what will happen is that the boot will fall down here, and then once it hits the seesaw, the switch will activate. So why do I need that to happen? Because I need to be able to turn the floor on, basically. So by turning the floor on, I am also getting rid of this block that's behind this thwomp. So this thwomp's purpose right here is to get rid of the floor, whereas this bomb is to turn on the floor. This thwomp turns off the floor. So if you can sort of follow what's going on here, I'm going to show exactly what happens just in a few minutes. But if you can sort of follow what happens, the player will come over here, bounce over here, the switch will be off, and then the boot will turn the switch back on, just in time for them to land on the ground here. And at that point, this switch will be off. The switch state is still on, right, because the floor is on. But when they were falling down here, the switch state was off. So that's why this has to hit the seesaw and switch it back on, because this guy was kind of pounding this block that was solid. And now when you go back over here, this thwomp will activate the switch and turn the floor off. So I hope that made sense. That's kind of how this works. And it's kind of crazy, but that's just how it is. I'm going to show you how it works now. Basically the whole room, I'll show you how it works in super fast motion. Left, up. Hold on a minute. So, let's see. Oh, I know what's happening. Okay, so I actually need to... Yeah, I need to actually spawn the room in over here. Okay, so here's this. This is all happening. That will come up. This guy will come over here, activate the note block. Another note block. So you just get on this vine. And now you fall down here. Watch closely what happens. That's how it works. So why is the only thing left to explain is how the POW is activating. And that's simply because of this right here. This is like a giant maze for the mole. So the switch state in the room activates 3 times before the mole has to do its thing. And I have to account for each of those switch activations. The first activation is this guy up here, which will hit the switch, and this guy will fall onto this conveyor. The switch will go this way, so the stack will be sitting right here. And then what happens is this shoe will hit the seesaw, which activates the switch, and then this turns the conveyor back this way, and essentially gets these guys into position here. So the muncher will be here, this entire stack will be right here at this point. Now the third switch activation happens with this guy, and that's the final switch activation. And these guys will be off, which will be, it'll be solid, the state will be solid, which keeps the mole and muncher in place. And this guy will leave the stack, which releases the mole, and the mole is able to walk toward the player after that. So this muncher here is just to prevent the mole from moving around like crazy until it gets into position. So that's what this crazy stack is for here. And you can kind of follow it, because once they get to this point, the mole will hit this bomb that's here, and this POW is just kind of on this block enough to hit it. So the bomb will explode the block, which kills the POW. So that's what's happening here. So that's all for this room. It's pretty crazy, and I hope it all made sense. And if everything made sense, then good for you. You have big brain. So yeah. Alright, so for the second room here, this is the room with the crazy teleporting magic, and you may or may not be disappointed in this setup, right? So if you have no idea what the broken track glitch is, then I suggest you take a look at my other video, before this one, I think it was. It was like from, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago. But just check that video. It's called like Teleporting for Dummies. And you'll see how this glitch works, because I'm not going to explain it here in this video. But basically it's just a broken track glitch. All there is here is there's just 3 blocks lined up to perfectly send the player back up each time they leave the screen. That's all there is to it. I'm just going to show you how it works here. See, the blocks just kind of go. Yep, 1 teleport, 2 teleport, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's all just perfect. Like, it all just works out. And this blue skull platform has to be here, because I think that, yeah, it doesn't work when when the screen is scrolling. But anyways, this blue skull platform has to be here, because if this were a normal block, it doesn't work for some reason. So you can just see that he's sitting there without doing anything, but then once you jump, it'll work. This is really weird, by the way. So yeah, this is how it works. Link will appear at the top of that ceiling. You can sort of see he'll appear like right here, which is just off screen. And then it looks like you're screen wrapping. So that's just basically how it works. It's very, very straightforward. You may be disappointed in it because it's so straightforward, but that's all there is to it. That's literally all there is to it. So yeah, I mean, the broken track glitch is pretty well known in the troll community at this point. And you'll find a lot of troll levels that use this. And it was just like some Discord thread that was happening where we were discussing ideas for this broken track glitch, and then I just happened to casually mention, hey, you should make a screen wrap out of this, and they were like, no, you should, because that's a great idea. And I'm like, oh crap, okay. So I basically, yeah, I used that idea that I had in the Discord to create this anti-soft lock. And that's basically how it happened. And yeah, I'm really happy with it. Obviously, it's like everybody kind of went crazy over it. So yeah, it worked out really well. Alright, so for the rest of the room, which probably everybody isn't as interested in, but I'll go ahead and do it anyways, because this is an explanation video. So, this part is easy, right? It's just a piranha and a block, and you get baited by this incredible shiny coin. So for this clown car part, this is kind of interesting because the switch has to activate twice for this thing down here to work, but if you go too fast, then it actually doesn't. So normally you aren't able to get into clown cars because of this block right here. So this block would prevent you from getting into it. So what happens is this this block will blow up just in time for as you're passing through it, so that you can actually get in the clown car. And for some reason, you'll always have leftward momentum right here, which basically lets you make contact with the spikes, and then the clown car just goes up from that point. So there is a bomb off screen that's blowing up this block here, and that's spawning from here. This is just an entity saver that's off screen. That's all this is for. So what happens is that this thwomp here will trigger this bomb, and that's how it's set up. The thwomp will trigger the bomb and then hit the switch once you get close to it. So just like that. So for the second part, once you get out of the clown car, you'll notice that that bomb then walks into position for a second trigger for the on-off switch. And this is what happens for the second trigger. Basically, a bomb will come up here and explode right in this little area here, which will send this thing flying upwards. And it is intentional where you're supposed to think you need to grab the vine, but what happens is that the dry shell will go above the vine so that you can't actually grab it. So you enter the dry shell like right here, and you can't grab the vine until you Z out of it. So that's intentional. This bomb down here, which starts down here, will make its journey up to here after, you know, switch state stuff happens in the level. So this mushroom troll right here, there is absolutely nothing here. There's no, I mean, I called it a troll, but there is no troll here at all. It's just dumb pick a mushroom stuff that is just to confuse the player and mess with their head. So that's the only reason this is here. So it just kind of gives him a false sense of security for this next troll here. And I found it kind of difficult to make people fall for this. So this arrow actually helps a lot. I actually did not have this arrow on previous versions, but just this one arrow actually helped a lot, and then increased the success rate for this troll. So what happens, as you saw in levels, is that this launcher will fall down here and then immediately move to the left. And that's because there's a POW behind this, and the POW comes out of this pipe here. So this launcher right here is actually just to prevent the POW from coming out initially. And then once the P-switch activates from this part over here, which this is the setup for, by the way. This P-switch only activates on the red state, which is the second time you come in. Hence this switch block right here, and then this P-switch block will kill the thwomp, of course, once it hits the P-switch. So that's what that's for. So down here, once the P-switch is activated, this block will kill this cannon that's essentially hoisting this launcher up. This launcher will then come down here once the P-switch stops, and you'll notice that this block is normal, so this will turn into a coin, so the launcher will be sitting right here when the P-switch activates, because of this coin block right here, which will turn solid. So, once the P-switch ends, this launcher will die, and then this launcher will come down here, and then rest on this block. So, here's what happens. So if you watch very closely, you can actually see the POW coming out behind the launcher. So if I remove this one way, which is keeping the two in place, you'll see how that works. See, the POW is actually coming out like and pushing the launcher over. And so by having this one way here, the launcher doesn't move until it passes that point down here. So then it's able to move over really quickly once you break this block. And so that's how that troll works. And again, this other launcher that I had here is just to keep the power from coming out before the P-switch is activated. And oddly enough, something interesting that came out of this is that if they try to one-shot the room after key dying, then the P-switch doesn't activate, right? So none of this stuff works properly. And so when they hit this block, the launcher will just come crashing on their head down here. And that's actually not really intended. It kind of is. I mean, I wish I could say it were intended, but it's really not. So it's just a state thing, you know. So, but it was funny nonetheless. So for this last troll, it's just a big mushroom up here. So if you actually jump too high, then you collect the big mushroom. And something dumb I added was a second big mushroom, so in case they think they need to jump to collect the mushroom first and then take damage, then they'll think it's safe after that. So then they'll jump high enough to collect the second mushroom. And I think the only person who fell for this was Geek, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it really didn't work very well. So yeah, this over here is just to keep the thwomp from going any further. You can kind of see how this works, in fact. So they collect this, they take damage twice, and then they jump up here again to collect it, and then hit the block a second time. So that's what that's for. Alright, so the third room here is probably the simplest one out of all of them. And it's simple but effective. So I will show this part first. So this part is, you know, just the changing troll of this room. Basically, there's two moles here that will appear on the blue state. There's no blocks behind them spawn blocking them though, because if you were to put blocks to spawn block them, they actually dig in the ground, and then like you can't really do that because here, let me show you real quick. If I were to put switch blocks behind here to try to spawn block them, they actually just dig in the ground like that, so they don't really spawn block. And so that's why this bomb is here, to actually blow up the moles on the second time through and onwards. So this is the thing that has the switch block behind it, right here. So the first time you come in, the switch state will be on blue, which spawn blocks the bomb and not the moles. And so the moles are able to go into position over here from this conveyor. So that's what's here. There's a one-way over here to keep the moles in place once they're in position. And then this obviously gets spawn blocked as well from the switch state. So that's that part. And of course, down here you also have the spawn blocking spring that comes up into position. So this over here is to activate the dry shell that comes down over here. So you'll notice that this is just a simple switch state thing. I just have a couple of power-ups up here that will come down and hit the no block to release the dry shell. And this is pretty useful because it's 0 entities up here and it's only a few over here. So it's a simple switch state thing that helps you to progress. So over here is actually Wilfred's troll, and I actually stole this, kind of. Well, he figured out that you can actually perfectly hide two Pokies behind each other, and by using this setup. This is Wilfred's setup, but I actually figured out a pretty nice troll with it. So he let me have it because it was kind of inconsistent, and you know, you can sometimes see the two Pokies behind each other, even though, you know, it's just really inconsistent. Sometimes the pellets will be out of place, like right here. Sometimes they'll be up here. So it's really kind of inconsistent. I think that's why he just gave up on it. But yeah, that's what this whole thing is for here. So you can kind of see what happens here. So the purpose of this bomb down here is to blow up these two pellets so that this Pokie can land on this platform, and then the bigger Pokie will just land over here to make it look like it's one Pokie. So the other interesting thing about this is that these Pokies can hide the track behind here, and that makes them think it's just a platform that will fall, but instead it goes upwards. And then the Pokie that's on the platform will go up into the spring here. Just like that. So that's how that works. So over here, it's just, this is spawning a bomb that will blow up this block to release the piranha. And it's just a, there's a little switch state behind here that won't spawn the bomb until the red state in the room. So that's the only reason this is here. So what happens here is that this piranha will just go directly through the wall, as you noticed, and the only reason for that is this spring here. If this spring weren't here, this setup does not work. So let me just show you what happens. So it just died, right? But with the spring there, it does not die. And it's super bizarre. I don't know why it happened. It's because Nintendo is dumb. But yeah, that's all that happened. It's pure jank. Don't ask why it works, it just does. So what I was able to do with this though is layer it like crazy, and I really was happy with this part of the section here. Yeah, what happens is that this piranha will come down here, only if they're holding right here. So, which everybody did because the piranha comes out so fast that they're kind of scared of it, so they just hold right at this part. So why is the fish activating the switch? That's just because of the mole contraption down here. So it's just a stack, and then the fish actually will like hit the mole, and the mole bounces on any enemies that it touches. And so that's why it's able to activate the switch. Yeah, so you can see how it works. So what's happened, yeah, again, I can sort of explain it. What's happening is that the mole is bouncing on the fish. And if the mole comes into contact with any enemy, then it'll just bounce backwards. And that bounce is enough to actually bounce it upwards and kill the mom with the muncher on top of it. So that's why this is activating. I think pretty much everybody knows that, but in case anybody doesn't, then there you go. And then the only thing that's left to explain is the vine, which is just a swamp down here. You can survive on this ground, which I really enjoyed this troll a lot. So that was a fun one. So for this second hub room, it's very simple. Something kind of dumb that happened on early revisions is that these keys were actually grabbable, and so people were just able to cheese the entire level just by grabbing one of these keys. And you can apparently get enough momentum like by running from over here or something, to jump off of there and grab the keys. But I just basically added some hidden blocks here to prevent that. But yeah, people were able to cheese the entire level, which was kind of funny. So for over here, it's just a bomb. And this POW actually keeps it up against the wall better, because if you were to have a wall over here, then the bomb is actually like 1 pixel smaller than the space between here, between both sides of the wall. So that actually is that's actually enough to make this, like if the bomb were up against this side of the wall, then the explosion can't reach the player. So that's why this is here. And that keeps the bomb in place better. And yeah, that's about it, honestly. Like, this level is quite complicated. You know, for 3 rooms, I was able to completely max out my entities, which is kind of nuts. And it turned out really well. I'm just overall super happy with this level. I think it's probably my best level, solo level. You know, because Stupid Soup, I think, was probably my best, but as far as solo levels go, I think this is probably my best level. So I'm really, really happy with it. And it just turned out super well. So thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you guys want to follow me on Twitch, I sometimes stream over there. And it's a good time. So anybody who wants to follow me over there can and should. I'll leave a link in the description. But yeah, other than that, I think I'm going to call it here. We'll see you guys next time.